GM, ladies and gentlemen, pigeons and purples all across the world. This is Purple Suede 22 coming at you live with my co-host Styled Pigeon, doing things a little differently today with the intro first. How's it going, Pigeon? What's new with you, man?
There's not a whole lot new, but I'm super excited to talk about today's topic because I'm kind of in the middle of this stuff. And that topic is the Web3 career blueprint, your path to success. I'm stoked. I think you're stoked. I feel good about the energy. You're in a new house now, which is insane. It's gorgeous. I drove up and checked it out last week, and we had a great time.
We had a great time, and I think we're probably going to do some in-person Gingerly episodes before too much longer. So stay tuned for that. I got to just show off my awesome palm plant that I have. It goes all the way up to the ceiling. So yeah, I was like, my first thing was like, I got to get me a plant to go behind my Zoom Gingerly background. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah,
it's gorgeous. Awesome. Absolutely gorgeous.
Thanks for the zoom in, Nick. Appreciate it. Well, cool. Hey, as we kick off, I want to give the viewers.
Oh no, a brand new house and connection problems. I'll go ahead and pick up from here. If assuming that I'm not the one that's DC'd. Okay, sweet. So we wanted to, before we jump into everything, actually give a quick shout out to RoundlyX. RoundlyX is our sponsor for these episodes. We really appreciate them doing that, and we actually love them as a company as well. Gingerly is sponsored, like I said, by our good friends at RoundlyX. RoundlyX is a simple-to-use app that allows you to round up your purchases into Bitcoin directly, as well as a bunch of other digital assets with your spare change automatically. It just rounds up your debit card purchases. It works great. I use it, and I know John actually used it in a time of financial stress to pay off his car loan. So works great. We love it. This allows you to easily DCA into those cryptos of our choice, or of your choice, rather. You can also actually sign up using the code Gingerly. That's just GINGERLY to get $15, a whole 15 US dollars of free Bitcoin after your first roundup, or if you subscribe to the idea bumps outside the US. Sorry, US folks, this is not going to work for you. And without further ado, is John actually logging back in now? Let me actually see if he's. We'll dive in without him for a little while and see how far we get, and hopefully he'll be back shortly. Nick, hopefully he'll be back shortly. Hey, yes, nice. Okay, well, I just killed airtime. Sorry for the dead air, folks.
Thanks, man.
We did already go over RoundlyX, and I didn't want to dive into the whole Web3 career thing without you, because this is really your topic.
Yeah.
And I'm going back to being dumb in the space. I'm not full-time in Web3 yet. I just do this for fun right now.
Yet being the operative word. We'll get there.
Yeah, I'm looking to transition and stop just selling pharmaceuticals. As much fun as it is to tell people that I sell drugs, it's not like a super fulfilling gig or anything. So, get us started. What's up with careers in Web3, man?
Totally. So this whole episode is based off of a Twitter thread that I did not too long ago, and I believe that's like the only link that I gave Nick for this week. So we'll put it below the description and everything. So if you want to TLDR on this show, check out that Twitter thread. But basically, so I was reflecting the other day with you, actually, Pigeon, that I am approaching 10 years in the crypto space. This coming April will be 10 years in the crypto space for me. And that just rocks my mind. I mean, I've always thought, oh, we're so early, this is cutting edge and all this kind of stuff. And then it struck me. I was like, I've been in the space 9 years already. And I wonder what I would have done differently when I started off had I known that I was going to be in this space for 9 freaking years. So I hope this episode can just be like a quick crash course for anybody who's looking to seriously either quit their job, which we'll get into later, or just get into the Web3 space in a serious way with the goal of making it a career. And since you're working on this, Pigeon, I think this could be a really good back and forth. So
So
Yeah,
before we dive into like the specifics and whatnot, I did want to actually ask a question.
please.
And maybe this comes later on in your thoughts, but before people make the decision to be like, you know what, I want to be into Web3 full time. I want to make this my career. I want to be in this space and work with tech startups and do all this stuff. What is it that convinced you personally to make that transition? Like, at what point were you like, you know what, I'm actually going to dive into this. This is going to be my life. This is what I'm going to do is advance Web3.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's a good place to start because you may not know if you want to be full-time Web3. Maybe you just know that you hate your current job and you want to do something different. And if you're watching this show or you hear about it down the road, odds are that you're interested in this field to some degree. So I think, yeah, starting off and asking yourself, what do I like about Web3? Or in my case, what holes do I see in Web3 that I know that I could fill? So when I was starting back in the day, pretty much the only I tell people all the time, DYOR, do your own research. And back then, the only places you could find like stuff to research, crypto Twitter wasn't really a thing. It was a very, very small community. There weren't people writing about anything crypto related at all, really. There was Bitcoin Talk forums, and then there were things called troll boxes on exchange websites, which were basically just global open chats in an exchange. Like if you went to Coinbase, there would just be a chat on the front page and it would be all the users that were there trading, mostly bullshitting, to be honest. Like it's just a ton of crap and trolling, but every now and then there's some alpha in there, right? Some good information to point you along the way. And so that's what I used to have to do, is just go back and forth between these forums and these chats. And you were just telling me before we got online, you're doing a lot of research right now, trying to understand all these various terms, like you were saying XBTC or SBTC or single-sided liquidity. You hear people
Right,
throw
right.
around these terms that just like don't make any sense. And you find out what they mean by going and doing research. That's a
Right.
Google search, that's looking through Twitter, but that didn't exist. And so I was like, I like to write. So, and I know how to write concisely. And so I'm going to do 600 word or less articles explaining this stuff. And that kind of kickstarted my journey into the Web3 space.
Yeah, no, and I think that's been the same thing for me actually. I'm earlier on in that journey, but I remember, I came over to your mom and dad's house for some family get together. I think it was a wedding. Um, Jesus, was that Jessica's wedding?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah,
Holy
my
cow.
sister's wedding.
I
Yeah.
can't believe it's been that long.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Total like tangent
Sidebar.
there. Um, so we were sitting around the table and you were telling me all this cool stuff that NFTs could do. And I was like, well, like, why doesn't anyone know about this? And you were like, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're going, yeah, that's what we're thinking too. And I was like,
Yeah.
well, it seems like, the sales team is pretty bad. And no offense to anybody who's on a sales and marketing team out there. We are just getting started. I understand. It's difficult too, because there's a sales and marketing team that's actively working against you.
True.
Federal government.
Yeah. The Fed.
So
Yes.
yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. So yeah, then that was the problem that I could solve. Is like, I'm going to step in, I'm going to use the knowledge and information that I have around sales and how to, explore products and tell people about products. And not only that, but education and storytelling is kind of my wheelhouse as well. So if you have something like that and you go, I think I could fix this in Web3,
That's a
join
great
us.
starting place.
Join us.
Yeah. And so I would even
We
point out,
need you.
like, I would point out that at this point in time, I was just doing this for fun, like as a hobby. I'd get out. So I was a debt collector back then. I was collecting debt on manufactured houses, or trailers as commonly known. And that was a rough job. And so to be able to cope with that, I had to have some other outlet. And I was already studying Web3. So I was like, this is perfect. I'm just going to put my writing skills, up here against Web3 and just put stuff out. And I started writing on Medium, and that ended up being really successful. And one of our good friends, JackBinswitch, he created his Web3 career in a very similar way. But I think my main point that I want people to hear right now is you don't have to quit your current job to get started in Web3. Don't even think about that to start off with. Just find something that you're interested in, right? So for me, that was Bitcoin, that was smart contracts. I got into Ethereum shortly after launch because I was just so interested in the idea of a smart contract. I was in the weeds doing all this research. find something that resonates with you. If that's SBTC, if that's NFTs, if that's ordinals, AI and crypto, there's all sorts of really cool cutting edge tech out there. Just start researching. And then as you research, you're going to find these gaps where, you're like, well, why, like you said, with sales, why isn't anyone teaching people how to do good sales in crypto? That's a great question. So what can you contribute? So basically that's the next step. So find something that you're interested in. Don't quit your job, research it. And if you find yourself having fun with that research, that's a pretty good sign that you're on the right path. Yeah. So yeah.
For me, it's like I keep having the revelations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I think people really make this decision to go, I think I could do this full time, is when they start going, oh, we're doing like a lot of things suboptimally. Like there's a lot of things, not just in finance, but in like politics and society overall, that a lot of this technology has the potential to fix. And once you hit that threshold of going, oh, I realize that these things are going to cascade in a positive direction, I want to be part of that wave. That's when you start looking at this. And the research, I think, is where those revelations have to happen, because you have to actually get into, we can talk all day long about how Bitcoin is going to change the world, but at the end of the day, the question is how. Right. That's what people want to know. They're like, okay, magic internet money, that sounds cool, but like, what is it? What is it doing?
Practically,
how does
do we
that
get there?
Yeah. What does that look like?
Right.
And you have to identify those interesting areas to you in order to start diving in, and it'll funnel you too. Like,
Yeah, it will.
because I jumped in with the Bitcoin Badgers because I was like, oh, I'm interested in stacks and FTs. But now I'm down like totally other, like I'm learning much more about finance in general, and being able to apply that in a non-fungible token sort of way. So that's been my part of the journey. So
yeah,
you dive in, you start researching, you make this decision that's like, okay, I want to contribute to this tidal wave of new technology that's happening.
or even I just want to know more. You don't even have to contribute at first. You just need to teach yourself about something and find that thread that you want to pull because you found something that resonates with you. I think that's step one.
I do think that people need to contribute. I think that that's really important. And I think not only is that important, but it's actually the most fulfilling way to be interested.
Oh, I agree.
Right? Like if you go, oh, I love Dungeons and Dragons, but you don't play Dungeons and Dragons, are you really part of that community?
Agreed.
Or are you really just kind of a voyeur?
Yeah. Or a LARP, as the crypto Twitter likes to say. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So what does that look like to get engaged beyond just your interest?
Yeah. So to be clear here, I think the very beginning stage is just finding out what you're interested in. But I think I agree with you. Very early on, you should push yourself to get involved in the conversation, right? So you found your niche or your area of interest that you want to learn more about. Don't just be a lurker, don't just scroll through Twitter or Reddit or whatever your preferred platform is. Actually put your opinion out there. And so I call this contributing value, right? So value can take a lot of forms. If I'm me, or I am me, to me, like you contributing value to me can look like, yo, Purple, like I know that you have built a career in Web3. What was the beginning stages like so that I can start taking those steps myself? It's not saying things like, Purple, get me a Web3 job, right? You're asking a question that allows a person or a brand to be able to respond and highlight their skills and experience. And
guess what their skills and experience are supposed to be doing on Twitter? Driving engagement.
Yes.
So when you provide them with engagement, guess what? They're freaking happy about that, because it's like, oh, thank God somebody's interested in what I'm saying. I'm not just screaming into the abyss.
Yes.
Sorry, I don't know.
No, that's super important. Like that is actually the goal. Like I'm a professional marketer, and when people ask me these kind of questions, I'm really happy to respond. Like, yeah, this is a great tweet of the tweet thread to highlight here, Nick. I'll just go ahead and read it. It says, remember, persistence is key. Keep refining your online presence, engaging with your community, and staying up to date with the latest trends in your niche. This will maximize your chances of landing a job in the fast-paced world of Web3. So I think that's a next thing that's really important to point out is whenever you're engaging with people, you're not just a social media user asking a brand a question. You should think of yourself as building a personal brand, right? And that comes with having a memorable profile picture, having a fun name like Styled Pigeon, right? And then sticking to that brand consistently. And if your brand is asking engaging questions, and then when you see other people asking questions and you know the answer to them, don't be afraid to pipe up and be like, hey, I was doing research. Here's a cool link.
Yeah.
Have fun with your research. That automatically ingratiates you to someone else, and it starts positioning you as, I don't want to say an expert, because no one's an expert in crypto, but somebody who has actually taken the time to do research. And if you can start people on the right path, they'll remember that.
Yeah.
Just recently, JackBinswitch, who I referenced earlier, who's now doing an awesome show on Bitcoin Live, attributed him coming on to Gingerly as a big reason that he wanted to start podcasting. And I didn't know that until just a couple of days ago. So you never know, right? Just having someone on your show, or volunteering to go on a show, right? Or asking questions during a live stream. You never know how that might affect somebody down the road.
Right. We
So
love seeing people in the chat and being able to like actually interact and respond with them. And granted, most of the time it's Phoebo on here making jokes, but
we love him anyway,
we love him to death. Yeah. Dirty old
So,
man.
so basically, so far we haven't even talked about quitting your full-time job. Okay, so, and I think we're getting pretty close to where you are in your Web3 journey, Pigeon, because we've identified an area that we like, right? We've studied that area. We've started contributing value online, right? We've been putting together content. This is all in our free time. This is after work, before work, during lunch break, whatever. And you're still
Yeah.
at your job, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the next
Yeah.
step is starting to analyze, okay, I really like what I'm doing. I can see a pathway to actually making money doing whatever it is that we're doing, right? And now you have to start deciding, do I actually want to take the plunge and move my career to the next step?
Right. And also don't let your boss know about your social media profiles. Because
Probably
when
not
he
a good idea,
sees that you're tweeting like 6 hours of the day, then
yeah.
he'll have something to say about that. So at this point, you're right. You've built up your knowledge, and you're interacting with the community. You're getting engaged, and you're offering some degree of value. One of the biggest things that was helpful to me, as I have been doing that myself, that I think a lot of companies, founders, personalities, people who are in the space really appreciate, is I have slowly but surely built up a small portfolio. That's just the shows that I've contributed to. Sometimes it's as simple as I published a book, right? Like I just did something cool and fun in the tech area.
You live
uh,
stream crypto shows weekly with the Badgers,
Right,
yeah.
exactly. All that I did. Actually, what's funny about that is the Badgers didn't even ask for me to do that. I came in and I was like, "Hey, I know how to stream VR on YouTube. Would y'all be interested in me just streaming it live? Don't change anything about what actually happens. We'll just put it up and we'll have a record of it, and people hopefully will find it entertaining. And if they don't, no problem. And then, okay, great. Now I get to be a part of Bitcoin Badgers. Next thing you know, I'm showing up in their community calls, and I'm getting alpha on everything that they're doing,
And giving
and
product feedback.
right, and giving product feedback, because guess what? Developers love product feedback. So basically, by being involved in the community, you're contributing to the community, and I guess that's kind of where I'm like, contribution is a necessity.
Yes.
Especially if you want to actually be involved in the space in a way where somebody maybe down the road might pay you money to help with the space. Whether it's US dollars or not.
Yeah, true.
Anyways, down with fiat. Okay.
Yeah.
So then you've got this knowledge base. What do you do with that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I think I want to highlight something that's really important here, right? You're still working a full time job. These are volunteer hours that you're doing. You're giving your time away for free to contribute value. Like, you streaming is a valuable service that you could charge for down the road, right? But you're doing it for free because it's something that you want to be able to practice and, like you said, build up a portfolio. So volunteer, ultra important. If you really like your community, you're going to volunteer anyway. I like boost people on Twitter, and I'm in Discord. I'm leaving little purple hearts everywhere because I want people to know that I'm supporting them, right? I want them to think, hey, Purple was here. Like, he knows what's going on.
By the way, Purple Heart branding genius.
Yeah, no, that's a part of the whole brand building, right? So it's something that people can hold on to where like I took the purple heart emoji and I use it so much all over the place. It's related to my name. That literally when people start using it because of me, right? And that's and then like Pigeon, you could build up the Pigeon brand in that same way. So there's lots of different possibilities, and that plays a role in creating your Web3 brand that you can eventually charge money for, right? Because now you're not just it's not just services that you're providing. That's a big thing that I realized that helped me out. Yeah, I'm writing articles. Yes, I'm doing podcast episodes, but I have built a brand of almost 4,000 followers of people who recognize it's purple. When he says stuff, he's the Bitcoin maximalist. He's a good guy. Like he supports good projects. We want to
Yeah.
pay him for the brand that he's built. And so that's the goal that we're trying to do right now. That's why we're not charging people money, because we're using their brand and influence to build our own brand where you can get to the point where you leave a little purple emoji and people think of you.
Right. Yeah. And it's really that's okay. Sorry. I think that there's an interesting element to this whole process, and I don't know how to separate it yet because we're both in sales, marketing, branding, promotion, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But what if somebody's not in that space? Like, do you have to learn how to do branding if you want to be involved in crypto?
No, I would
Because I
say
mean, it
no.
it looks
Yeah.
like the answer is yes to me.
Yeah. I think it depends on your skill set. So what I'm describing first of all is based off of my own experience, right? This is a 9-year journey. This is what I'm good at. This is what I like. So the formula I think stays the same. The brand part is optional, but it will definitely speed up your Web3 career, right? Because you're basically raising your profile in the circles of people that make all the decisions. Like we talked about Stacks blockchain. I know almost everybody in like the moving and shaking, like people who founded Stacks blockchain, the foundation. I know almost everyone, and that's because I have taken the time to build that brand. But also our good friend Setsus, who's the god tier developer who built the Badgers and almost every other major stacks project out there. He isn't on Twitter very often. He gets on every now and then, but everyone knows who that guy is, because of his
Yeah.
insane hustle and work in the background in the developer space. And that's his skill. He doesn't have to build a brand like I built a brand, because his brand is being a developer that puts his head down and gets stuff done. Right.
So
So,
when you say write and share content related to your niche to promote that personal brand, for like Setzus, for example, just randomly him, right? His clarity course is what he did, right? That's
yes.
developer work. He just had somebody film it and it's edited well and everything, but he basically just said, I have this knowledge, I'm going to share this knowledge, and people love that. People really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And the first 10 episodes are on YouTube for free. So it's like it's so we're trying to make it as accessible as possible for people to get interested and be involved,
I think
as
that's a
far as
great,
I can tell.
actually, accessibility. I think that's a great way to think about this. If you hear build a brand and you're immediately like, oh my God, there's no way I can't build a brand. Like, I'm not a marketer. I hate writing. I hate being on a podcast. Be accessible, right? And
Hmm.
accessibility means maybe you're committing tons of GitHub pushes and people just know your name because you're popping up freaking everywhere on GitHub. Maybe it's you write product hunt reviews like a boss, or maybe you're helping people write grants or something like that. This is just various things I'm trying to pull out of my head.
Hmm.
It applies to anybody. Basically, you just
Or
want to
just
be a person that people think well of whenever they see your work, and you want people to see your work all the time.
Yeah, and I thought about Discord as well, like especially for people who are in the developer space, which I think we have a lot. Well, we need more developers. So
Yeah, we do.
even though there are a bunch more developers than there are marketing people, we still need more developers for sure. So like if you're on the developer end of things, then Discord is a really big place to be in addition to GitHub, right? Because what's going to happen is, you take your top 3, 4, 5 projects that you think are very interesting, products that you think are very interesting, and you show up in their Discord, and then like somebody shows up and asks a question, and you get to that question correctly, accurately, and in a timely manner before the Discord bots do,
Yeah.
One, the Discord mods are going to be, oh my God, thank you. I did not want to
I love that
figure
guy
out a
so
response
much.
to that.
Yes.
Yeah. And two, everyone in the community is going to go, oh snap, like he did a really good job with this. This is perfect. What's his name
He knows
again?
what he's talking about. Yeah.
What's her
Exactly.
name again?
Her name.
Or
Their
ladies?
name.
Yeah, I think that's 100%. Accessibility is what it is, and accessibility kind of overlaps with that authenticity layer as well, which is something that I think is very practical way to get involved in a space like this. Is if you're on Discord or Twitter or something like that, and you're talking in super scammy terms, people are going to be cautious around you. But if you're like authentic, you're like me talking about like my experience with quitting nicotine, like I have no problem talking to people about that because it's really freaking hard.
Yeah.
And it should be.
And there are other
I'm a
people
real
that are
person.
suffering through it too. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a real person. I'm not an internet made up internet personality. Like this is just me. This is what my bedroom looks like. That's kind of actually why we don't use fake backgrounds. Is because it's like, no, this is the living conditions. This is the world we're in. I'm not trying to act like I'm at the top of some 40-story building in a suite. Like that's
totally
people who do that are not me. That's not who I am yet.
And that authenticity comes through, right? And that's a big part of your brand, quote unquote. And like speaking in a broader sense. So to segue a little bit, I think that it's important to realize here. So you found your niche, you found the community that you like, you're contributing value. Whenever you're answering questions in Discord, people are thinking of you. You're still working full time. One thing that I want to tell you is that you make your own luck. Like a lot of times people look at my own career and they're like, oh my God, you got so lucky. You joined in at this particular time. This particular company just happened to offer you a job at the right time. But I firmly believe that you set yourself up for those situations, because if you're building your brand like this, the space is so small where if someone thinks, man, I really need to have somebody come mod my Twitter spaces tomorrow. And I need it quickly. I need someone who'll do a really good job. There are a lot of people who will think, oh, I should ask Purple to pop on and come onto the spaces. And like, I'm getting to the point where I get invited to a lot of spaces just because I've helped a lot of people do that. So whenever people came to me and they were like, hey, I want to pay you money to come, do that for us full time. Like basically that's what NeoSwap did. NeoSwap saw me on Twitter. They saw like me using their tool. I was showing up to their Twitter spaces and they offered me a job. So it's like you do actually make your own luck. You set up the shop.
So, okay, I have 2 points. One is if you call people lucky, if you call successful people lucky, there's something very crucial that you don't understand. And I'm going to just leave that there. Luck is not a measurable thing. Okay. Which means it's not really real. So stop focusing on shit that you can't control and do something for yourself. You're the only person responsible for taking care of you. Stop being lazy. And I'm saying that to me as much as anyone. And the second thing that I wanted to say was, I've heard this said before, and it's been probably 6-7 years since I've thought about this. But one of the recommendations that I got when I started looking into like trying to generate passive income and like the Tim Ferrisses and the Pat Flynn's of the world and started listening to all their podcasts and doing all that stuff was they would say, just do the job that you want to have.
Yeah.
Just start doing it. Like just do it for free.
Yep.
And eventually someone will go, hey, you're really good at this now. Because by the way, you're going to suck at the beginning. You're not going to be good at the start. Nobody should pay you to do that job right now.
Yes.
Just start doing the job. And then eventually you'll be good enough to where somebody's going to be like, hey, I'm willing to give you US dollars in return for your services. If you'll do this for me, because I'm a person that can't do everything. Not a single person can't do everything, but there are people who want to do things, so they will pay you to help them do those things.
Yes.
Anyways, sorry.
No, that's a
you,
fantastic point. I mean, in building off of that, like that, I want to put some context here because there are so many people, like you said, Tim Ferriss's, whoever that are like, hey, I'm on the other side. Like it's easy for you to say Purple because you have a Web3 career and you're already there. And, but it's so hard. But I'd be like, listen, homie, I have been there. Okay. I was literally working a debt collection job in 2014. Okay. And I would occasionally get some money for an article, but it was usually like $60. Okay. And I would spend multiple
We're
hours.
rich.
Exactly. Right. And I celebrated that first payment that I ever got. And it was like in 2017, and it was for one article. I went viral a few times with some various projects, but I didn't get paid any kind of livable money. It wasn't
Sure.
until so you said accepting various forms of payments. I accepted like some stock options in various companies who have since gone to zero. Some of them haven't, as payment, right? So it's like you're gambling on your own future. I didn't receive US dollar payment for a crypto gig until 2021, and I started in 2014. Okay. I like really like what I do. And I did it for free for so long that it
You know,
eventually paid off.
I really think that that's an important aspect of the Web3 space too. That's actually one of the biggest and best gatekeepers we could possibly have, because it's like if you're a person in the Web3 space who's like a career person, you've done your time.
Yeah. No, it's true.
there's zero chance that you did not do the time needed unless you're an outright scammer,
Right.
and in which case like you're gonna have a really hard time making this last,
Yes.
because scammers get found out and get pushed out very quickly in
Really
this
fast.
space. Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
So
Yeah.
okay, so sorry, I took us on kind of a wild tangent there, but these are all important things to say. Sorry they weren't in a linear fashion. Call me neurodivergent or something. So where do podcasts fit into this? If somebody's like diving into the space, where do people like us fit in?
Yeah. No, so that's a great question. So like I think that's actually a great follow-up. This feels very linear in my head. So
Maybe
um
I'm just not following.
part of you never know. That's why we're both on this podcast. It's our differences of
Yeah,
view.
because I get to be
So
like, we.
yeah, I'm along for the ride. So I just said I was in this space for however many years that is, 2014 to 2021, before I was paid anything. And the really what helped ramped it up is Bitcoin Live. Like I was tweeting and I was talking about all these different ideas, and I was meeting all these different people. I was going to in-person meetups, which I think that's another big thing. Like actually meeting people in person who do your stuff is really good, because you can prove to people that you're a real person, right? You're not just some grifter on the Bluebird app. You're someone who is genuine. And so I met Paul McNeil, the crypto curator, in person in Washington, D.C. And one day he was like, hey, I'm doing this show. I know you know about Russian foreign policy. I would love to have you just come talk with us, basically, because of meeting you in person, seeing all the stuff that you write, your consistency, all that kind of stuff. I happen to love public speaking. So for me, I was like, yes, let's freaking do this. It's going to be an amazing conversation. But that's definitely not the norm. I know a lot of people aren't down for public speaking, but I would encourage you. Podcasting is basically, the idea is teaching someone a concept helps you understand the concept infinitely more than just teaching yourself the concept, right? And so by going on podcasts, you're putting your chips on the table and saying, I understand this. I care about this. I know what I'm talking about. And I'm going to come out here, even if no one watches this show, which, shout out to our 5 viewers. But even if no
And
one
we have
watches this show,
viewers, okay,
thousands,
hundreds of
billions.
viewers. That's like what I tweeted earlier today. Aspen Gold saying, "I'm sure there are dozens of girls that play Diablo."
Oh yeah. So, but anyway, even if no one shows up at all, for you, it's like I get to talk to you, Pigeon, about these concepts. So in my mind, I'm teaching you about something that I care about. And that helps me be able to articulate on Twitter, in person, much better. And it builds the portfolio, like you were saying. So if you feel like you've been in the space for a couple years and you know all there is to know about recursive ordinals or something like that, start talking to people who are in podcasting. And you know what? We happen to know a fantastic network that's always building shows and always has
Yeah.
people on. Bitcoin Live is a great place to start. We're at the very beginning, but we're starting to grow. So if you want to be involved in podcasts, get to know us, come on our show. We'd love to have you talk.
And honestly, like the headway you could make by just being in the comments on a regular basis on like
Huge.
3-4 different shows, just to let them know that you're watching, you're paying attention, like you engage with them in a way that is clearly informed. That's a huge deal. And I do want to mention that, this is assuming that you've been in the space for a minute. Like if you don't know anything, like nobody
You're
wants
going to
to have
get
you on
found out on a
as a
podcast pretty quickly.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Unless you do it my way, where I'm like, I don't know anything, but I want to ask some questions.
That's your brand, though. Like, that's
Right, yeah.
completely acceptable.
Yeah, it's okay to be new. It's okay to ask questions, but you gotta, like, I came with a companion, right? Like I came with a package deal type thing to this space. My point is, don't, like, if you're just like, oh, I thought I'd be on your podcast and not know anything with you, they're probably going to say no. So
Yeah.
just as a heads up, I don't want anybody being like, well, I asked to be on this podcast and they said no, and I don't know why. And don't be silly. Okay. Nobody wants to have you on your podcast if you're a dum dum, unless you're trying to be a dum dum on purpose. And they're like, yes, that's what we want.
Yeah.
But once once you know stuff and you're involved, then when so-and-so has or let's say you have a project or something that you're working on, reach out to some podcasters and be like, hey, I've got this project that I'm working on. This is kind of the details. And I would love to do some promo, and two, I would love for people to know about it. And I think your audience would like to know about it too, right? That's why we mention things like the Bitcoin Badgers, why we promote Bitcoin Live, is because it helps us, it helps them. Like, why not? This is great. We're all trying to advance Web3 here.
And I would also say on that note, like, there's no real need to ask people to be on their podcast, because if you're following, the steps that we kind of laid out in the show so far, you're already contributing value in the comment section of your favorite podcast. You should have a favorite podcast. You should have a favorite.
And it should be gingerly.
That's right. It should be ours. But no, you should have a person that you're like, I love this person's content. For me, getting started, Jameson Lopp was invaluable to my research. And I got to meet him in person this past year, and it was awesome. And I geeked out, and it was great. But you should have somebody like that, because it pushes you to be like, I contribute value in a way where you're telling the person, I digested your content, I understood it, and now I'm contributing this value back. Literally, that's how JackBinswitch ended up coming on our show, because the man is an incredible hustler. He contributed so much value to all of our posts leading up to when we had him on the show. It was a no-brainer. We'd be like, oh my God, this guy is awesome. Yep. I have to have him on Gingerly. And he got invited. So consider that, like, that's more of my point. When you get to the point of being invited onto a podcast, because if you take these steps, you will be. Don't turn it down. Don't be scared. Just go on there, because you're being invited for a reason, right? You know your stuff. You have contributed. And that leads me to my next point, which is do the brave thing. My boss at NeoSwap likes to say this all the time. And it's something that I really resonate with. In the Web3 space, we're on the cutting edge. There's lots of scary stuff, right? Because it's new. There's no one to base your decisions off of. There's no one to give you advice. Oftentimes, the braver thing is going to stretch you or teach you more than the less brave thing. And so going on that podcast, or making the decision to quit your job and do, if you found out, hey, this person is going to pay me. This worked out for me. Okay. So I was selling insurance at this point. I had a company that I was consulting. Well, it was RoundlyX. I was working with RoundlyX for free. And I was getting really fed up with my job, and I had saved up a little bit of savings. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to quit my job. I'm going to hustle really hard on Web3, and I'm going to do my thing. Literally quit my job, and I made my own luck. The next day, the RoundlyX CEO hit me up, and he was like, hey man, we just finished raising some money. I can't pay you full-time salary, but I can pay you part-time. Like, are you down? And I opened myself up for that opportunity. I quit my full-time job. It just so happened that RoundlyX was going to pay me as much part-time as I was making for my old insurance job. So I was like, yeah, this is a no-brainer. I'm absolutely going to do this. That led to a career at Cointelegraph. And then Cointelegraph career led to NeoSwap. And so, you build your own brand, you make your own opportunities. It's going to be freaking scary. It's going to be scary. There's not going to be anyone to pat you on the back and say, you're being so smart. My parents called me all sorts of like, you're not being wise. You're making stupid decisions. There's no way that this is going to be able to last. But now I get to do what I love and I make good money doing it. And it's possible. Like, yeah, it's possible. Pigeon's laughing because he knows my parents better than a lot of people do.
Well, and it's not even just your parents. It's actually like the previous generation. When I think about the way that, like, and maybe some of this is projected from me onto them, but it's like, why don't you own a house yet? And it's like, well, like, I can't afford one. And they're like, why are you trying to advance your career? This is so risky. And it's like, okay, but like you just said, like,
yeah.
what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do here? Like, rock, meet, heart place. Like,
yeah.
Sorry.
It's a hard world, man. I think a lot of people resonate. Yeah. A lot of people resonate.
Our generation isn't like, sorry, mom and dad, like, I didn't mean to be such a failure to launch, but here we are. Like,
yeah.
Like, sorry, I don't know what to do. And they're like, well, just go out and buy a house for 80 grand. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, perfect condition, and $85,000. I don't understand the problem. Like, no, you bought your first house for $8,000. Like, leave me alone.
Yeah.
My car costs double that. Shut up.
Yeah. I mean, at the least these days, for real. Yeah. So,
Sorry.
I mean, but what you're saying resonates with people. Like, I was in the same place. Working insurance. I was like, I hate this job. I can't buy a house. I can't afford a new car. I think Web3 offers a very amazing opportunity for people our age, because it's something that we can learn, we can adopt to, and we can create a career where we have the opportunity to grow, because dollar cost averaging, not just knowledge, but Bitcoin, into a asset that actually doesn't inflate your savings away, gives us a leg up. So I really do encourage everyone listening to seriously consider this. It could be your way out of your current, little rat race that we're stuck in.
Yeah, and that's really always the goal, right? That's one of the things Paul always talks about. Bitcoin equals freedom, and I do think that that's true in multiple ways, because I think that Bitcoin really teaches us being involved with Bitcoin teaches us the reality of our situation in a lot of ways, where it's like, what do you really want to do? When it comes down to it, you only live once, and you have to figure out some sort of purpose and meaning in your life, in my opinion, in order for it to be a reasonable thing for you to be alive anyway. And I think that that's what life kind of comes down to, is like, how do you excuse the fact that your mother gave birth to you and fed you for all those years? Like, how do you, like, why are you here? What's the deal? And I think that at the very least, Web3 and Bitcoin teaches us that that's the reality. Even if you don't want to be involved in the Web3 space eventually, which, to be fair, you're listening to a Web3 podcast, so you're probably looking that direction. Like, I know I'm kind of caveating for people who are not in the same circle as us, but if you're not in the same circle, you're probably not listening to the podcast. But if you're interested in Web3, it's for a reason. I think this space has a magical draw to it. It really is something special, and the people here can be total degens, but I think that they really come from an intelligent place, if not a smart one, in trying to say, we're kind of fed up with the way that things are, and we'd like to, expand and go further. And I see in the chat, Bitcoin Live just messaged the Wild West, and that's exactly what it is. It's like, the Wild West is dangerous, and some of us are gonna get injured along the way. Some of us aren't going to make it, but we're trying to bring along as many people as possible, because we really do think that this is going to change the way that the world actually is. And I think that's okay. So there's this weird thing that happens in the Web3 space where we all hear this, like, self-improvement advice for some reason. It's like, why is Web3 and self-improvement like in the same category? How are those overlapping? And I see Kitsune was actually mentioning, turning down a podcast. And it's like, hey, like, why would you chicken out of that? Like, and not to make fun of you, because I'm sure that you have the courage to do things like that now because you learned from those lessons along the way. But it's like, I encourage everyone to have courage. That's what encouragement means, by the way. Encourage. And it's like, okay, so we're talking about like basic life values and principles to live by in the Web3 space, which is just about cryptographic tech. Like that's all that it was. That's the only advancement technologically that was made. Is we were like, what if we use cryptography to do some of this, and then Bitcoin? It's like, wait, what? Yeah, it's because it's actually it has that X factor, that change factor. That's or I guess maybe you would call that a delta factor for those math people out there. But that alteration is something that we think is actually going to make a difference, and that's why we want to be involved with it. Which I guess brings us full circle. So if you keep I honestly think if people keep adding value to the niche that they choose, they're going to make it. Like if you go, I'm going to do this, and you keep grinding on it, and maybe it's an hour a week, which let's be honest, you can do better. You can do better than that. Like don't be a sissy about it. Put more than an hour a week into it. If you really think that you can change things with something, an hour a week, come on. Put in 6, okay? Put in 20 if you can. Why not? Abandon your children and your family. Commit to Web3. You heard it here first.
That's right. TM, gingerly.
Yeah. Abandon your wife and kids. Start a Web3 podcast. So yeah, and I think that persistence is key. So yeah. All right. Sorry for the rant.
No, I think that was really important, and it does bring us full circle. At the end of the day, the reason that I made the hard choice to quit my job without having a job lined up, okay? Like I've done this multiple times in my career. I've moved to Washington, D.C. with no job, and I found a job. I quit my job wanting to be in Web3, and the universe presented me a job. That won't happen for everybody, but like I said earlier, you make your own luck. And if you're studying Web3 enough where you come to a point where you're like, I understand this enough where I want to share it, you start coming to those life realizations of like, wow, our money system is really screwed up, and there's no one that's coming to save you. It's just you. And you have to make the decision. I want the world to be a better place. I think that me working in Web3 is going to affect more of the world than me trying to be a good voter or working in Washington, D.C. or running for office. That's what I believe, right? That's why I'm here. And that led me to make a difficult decision, a very large life observation. It was brought about because of Web3, because it made me study the way my life, my economy, my money all works. You'll get there too if you stick with it long enough. And I hope that leads to a career in Web3, because we need more people just like you working in this field. Because at the end of the day, if we're going to make change, it's going to be up to us. There's nobody else coming. So that's my inspirational quote of the day. And I would say, if you need advice, if you have questions, if you want to contribute some value, my handle's right here. Styled Pigeon's handle is right on his side as well. Like, hit us up. We are here to help you. The space is much more welcoming than you'd think. Yeah, it's the Wild West, but there's so much opportunity in the Wild West. So
yeah, there is.
Feels like a wrap to me, man. That was a good session.
Yeah, I had fun. Did you have fun?
I had a blast.
Everybody in the chat had fun, I hope.
Oh yeah, it looks like it. So again, like hit me up. Pigeon's on his journey. He's in a different stage than I am, so we both have very different advice to be able to give you.
Actually, I did have one thing that I wanted to share about this whole like engagement thing before we wrap up completely, because I think this has to do with the courage point. Is like one day, Magic Leap, right? The mixed reality, augmented reality company.
Yeah.
I tweeted about them one day, and I do regular tweets, and sometimes I don't read the articles as thoroughly as I probably ought to. Or maybe there's like some background information that's missing, and this one had some background information missing, and I had accused them of not shipping like for a while. Yeah. And the CEO of that very large tech company was polite enough to actually comment or reply and say, hey, actually, this is not true. You should look into this more. And he was extremely polite, number one. He was also very firm. He was like, this is actually bullshit. Like, you're very, very wrong. And it turns out that actually I just hadn't seen any news from them since they got some really bad press. And I believed that bad press. And I ended up talking to him and going back and forth a little bit. And he was like, oh, yeah, we you know, this is not the first time I've heard that. Like we had that bad press happen, and people kind of, you know, what do they call it? Slept on us a little bit for too long.
Yeah.
But they're more of a business to business, so it's like they don't need consumers to really know about what they're doing.
Right.
And you'll find that experience a lot is even if you're like, I think the Stacks blockchain's bullshit. Somebody from the Stacks blockchain will be like, hey, I disagree politely.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's what are your qualms? Tell me what issues you're having. It's slow. Yeah, we know. But we're working on that and trying to move forward. And that's the case for a lot of technology. So, you know, even in that, you're still offering value, even if sometimes it's maybe a little bit fuddy. Don't fud out real hard because the developers won't appreciate that too much. But, you know, if you've got doubts and things, air your grievances, and that's legitimate value as well.
Yeah, the community is there to teach. Yeah.
Let's wrap this bitch up like a Christmas gift.
I'm terrible at wrapping Christmas gifts, man.
Yeah, sloppily.
Man. Yeah. But anyway, yes, thank you all. It's a wonderful episode. If you have any more questions about getting started in Web3, let us both know. We can't wait to hear from you, and we'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode of Gingerly. So until that time, thanks, Mr. Pigeon. Talk to you soon. Thanks, Bitcoin Live. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.